guys, it's Deb, and welcome to Touchdown Timeout. We are now doing YouTube Live. I got so many requests to take it even bigger. We're eventually going to be streaming on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Instagram Live. We're just super excited. We have a great show today. I have got the pioneer for women in football. She is breaking down barriers and kicking ass. She is the first woman to play professional football as a running back. She's the first female coach in the NFL. She has her doctorate. She's an author. She's the founder of Gridiron Girls Football Camp for Girls. Here's a video to introduce her. Everyone, Dr. Jen Welter.
I remember being enchanted by the game of football, and I always wanted to play. Unfortunately, it was actually the first place in this world that somebody told me there was a difference between what girls could do and boys could do. Humbly, I was one of the best players in the world, and it never crossed my mind that I could find a career coaching football, because at that time, there were no women on the sidelines that I could look at and say, I want to be her. Two, three, go! Anytime I have an opportunity to get out and coach on the field for kids, I think it's so important because it changes what they think is possible in the sport, right? You saw we had girls and boys out there today. And for the girls, it shows them that they could be there. And for the boys, it shows them that a coach is someone who gives them knowledge. It's not about the gender of that person. It's who can make them better.
Football is not a sport only for boys, it's for everyone pretty much.
She's very inspirational in that for me being on the other side of the football field, being a cheerleader, I now know that I can go and play football.
The hardest thing to navigate about being the first female coach in the NFL, it's not what most people think. Most people thought that it would be the players who wouldn't take coaching from a woman. Let me tell you, those guys are pros, and if you can make them better, they'll listen. The harder part is actually the stuff that happens outside of the game. One day you might be the answer to football, you know, all of these good things. We love having a girl there, and then the next day it's like, this is the demise of the sport. We are at a great place in terms of the beginning of the next evolution of the conversation of women in sports. And we're seeing things like the U.S. women's national team, whose jersey sales were the highest ever. So we're starting to see where, you know, from a financial perspective, in their case, the dollars make sense. I hope the conversation becomes great coaches in this, and this is what a staff looks like. And it's not rare to see a female on the sidelines, you know, with a headset, right? It's not rare to see women in all of these capacities.
Jen, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Right, absolutely. And I love the message that you're giving now to young girls, that they can do anything with, you know, with your Gridiron Girls. I think that's so super important, that they can, you know, take on these daily challenges and be, you know, the women that they want to be in football. And we'll get into more of that later. My first question, though, is what brought you to football?
I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, where football is like a way of life. It really is Friday Night Lights, like the whole town shuts down and everyone goes. And I remember thinking as a kid that these were like real life superheroes. And I just wanted to play. And it was also the first place in the world where someone told me that there was a difference between what boys were allowed to do and what girls were allowed to do. And so it wasn't like I had this dream at the time and I was able to just pursue it all the way through. But I always wanted to be able to play. And so when I had the opportunity, the Mass Mutiny, which ended up being my first football team, they're now the Boston Renegades. They recruited me from a flag league that I was playing in. So though it was flag, I had never stopped tackling. And
I love that.
I mean, they were probably really excited to get rid of me at that time. But yet when I made that team, that was like, for me, that was like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do with my life. I've loved it since I was a little kid. And now that I'm going to play, I am going to do everything that I can in this game.
And when you're talking about playing in that women's league, I know every guy that I talk to who's a player in the NFL or in football in general, they talk about the brotherhood and they talk about, the fraternity that is, football. Did you guys have that in that women's league as well?
Oh, 100,000%. I think the coolest thing for me to say is that I'm a part of the brotherhood and the sisterhood, right? It is the football family. And that's what we call it, right? Like, there are women in this world that are my best friends that I never would have known if I didn't play football. And, we have that relationship, right? Like when you'll go into essentially like battle with someone, right? And that your survival is determined by the woman or man to your left and right, like it forges bonds that you have for the rest of your life. And the beautiful thing about football, and part of why I think it's, the most special game on the planet, is that it fundamentally requires diversity at its core to be successful, right? When you look out on the football field, you clearly see diversity as a strength at its finest. You have everything from straight muscle to straight hustle and a whole lot of crazy. And I was the crazy, right? But people of very different skills, abilities, and talents all working together where their differences are what makes them special. And we are put together in an 11-on-11 choreographed dance that does not work if one of us doesn't do what we're very best at.
And I love that you just called it a dance, because I've actually danced since I was 3 years old. And I think that's why I love football so much, is because it's a choreographed dance with a ball.
It is.
And sometimes it all works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. But you're dancing with the person on the other side of the ball, right? Especially as somebody on defense, like we have a job, but our job is contingent on, is it a run or a pass? What route are they running? Who's coming this way? And our responsibility does not exist in a vacuum. So if you're not working both together with the other 11 players, right? If you're not on the same page, done. And if you don't know how to move in response to the person who's moving across the ball from you, it's also done.
How do you feel when you step on a football field?
It's magic. Football is the place in this world where I learned that there was real world magic. It didn't matter what else was going on in my life. When I put those pads on and I put the helmet on, there was nothing I couldn't do. I could be I could play 6'10" at 5'2". And I think all of us, whether it's football or something else, we deserve that place in the world where we can be magic. Because when you find it in one area of your life, you're committed to finding it in others, and you realize that you're worth magic. And so anytime I'm on that field, it's special to me. And people always say, do you miss playing? Every single day, right? And it's not just the game that you miss, it's the people in the game. It's the sounds of the game. It's the feeling of, making a perfect tackle, right? It's all of those things. And those are also some of the most, vivid memories and stories that will be with me as long as I'm on this earth.
And what is one of your favorite stories from your playing days?
Oh gosh, there are so many. One of the best games that historically has ever been played in women's football would be Dallas Diamonds versus Chicago Force. It was always a battle, right? Two of the epic teams. And I remember hearing the same phrase from so many people. It was like, hey, well, have the game of your life tonight. This is the game of your life. And I was like, you're right. I'm going to tackle the world. Like, this is it. And we're in overtime. And we ended up winning that game in overtime. And it was this back and forth matchup, right? Like every time you thought that you were going to pull ahead, man, the Force would score. And then there was Dallas, and there's this back and forth. And it just felt like a game of destiny. And I knew I was doing everything I could. It's exhaustion, it's excitement, it's exhilaration. And in that game, we won our 4th championship in 5 years.
Wow.
And that game became the foundation of the 2010 U.S. national team. So I always tell people, I'm like, of the games that changed my life, one of them for so many reasons.
And then you went on to play for the Texas Revolution, which was an indoor men's professional league. So you became the first female running back in a men's professional league. How was that experience?
Well, first and foremost, to anybody who's watching, I never set out to play men's pro football. In fact, I would be asked about it all the time. And I would say, I am 5'2", 130 pounds. I am not crazy. I would never play football against men. Apparently, God has a great sense of humor, or just doesn't like the word never. Because what happened is that the Revolution actually wanted me, and this is 2014. It was right after I won my 2nd gold medal with Team USA. They wanted me to come out and go through a day of training camp with the guys. And I was like, excuse me, that's an insult to me as someone who just won my 2nd gold medal. And if I was any one of the guys on your team, I would absolutely hate it. If you want to do anything with me, I either do everything that the guys do, step for step, hit for hit, for all of training camp, or I do nothing. And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, it was like, oh, what did I just do? Because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I had just shifted the course of my life. I was, in fact, going to play men's pro football. And, they were going to have to either cut me or kill me, because I damn sure wasn't quitting. And I also wasn't letting them use me as a publicity stunt.
How did they react to you at first?
Well, at first it was, you take the hits just like anybody else, right? Like, and we're going to hit you and we're going to test you. I was the person with the Dallas Diamonds, right? Like, I was the one of the people that, oh, you think you're going to play our game? You're going to have to get through me. Yep. So I expected nothing less. In fact, it would have been insulting if they had done anything less. It was one of the best things I have ever done in my life. It was also one of the most painful. But sometimes we learn the most through pain. And, it's one of those things where I tell people I got into men's pro football in the most painful way possible. I actually played. And, one of the things that guys really wanted to know is that you were there for the right reasons, right? Like, I didn't have to run past them or run through them on every play. But what I couldn't do is get tackled and then say, you can't hit me, I'm a girl. That's the job description. So in that experience, what happened is I learned those men really well. And they taught me so much. Now, as I say that, they always yell at me and they're like, yeah, you taught us a lot too, right? And so I would say that we were great teammates, because just like any other locker room that's learning from those who are different, we did. And we all got better through the process. One of the best things that I ever did, and without a doubt, led on a direct path for my progression through men's pro football, because I earned respect of the players. And then when we had a new head coach the following year, Wendell Davis was like, you have to coach my football team. Yep. And I was like, no, girls don't do that. but he had never looked at me as a girl. He
Right.
looked at me as somebody who had a
He
great
was a
love,
football
passion,
player.
right? Love, passion, and knowledge of the game, and
Yep.
that the players listened to.
You didn't expect that at all. Like, that thought even crossed your mind that you would coach?
No, because I wasn't that player either. I mean, I never thought of myself that way. I always thought I had more to learn, right? I wasn't the one who was like, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. I was like, and I'm still learning. Now, if somebody asked me, right, or they were in my position or I could help them, yeah, of course, that's being a good teammate. But I was never like, the captain and the huddle caller and the that person. I was the like, take the quarterback out and like, we're done, right? Like I was a little bit of the wild child, right? Like very smart, very strategic, all of those things, but never what I would have thought of as that person who would go on to coach. I was more of the catalyst in how I played the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people played up around me because of the energy and intensity that I brought. But unless you specifically like asked me to teach you something in terms of like playing, I probably wouldn't. Although I did help a lot of girls on offense who I saw kind of like talent in that maybe were being overlooked, like somebody who I just knew had it, and like I'd be like, I'm about to tell you how to beat me. Right? Almost like it made me mad. But I never would have really just like in it of myself said, that's the person who would be a coach. Meanwhile, I already had my PhD in sports psychology. A lot of my studies were in coach-athlete relationships and communication, but I always thought I would work as a good translator and helping to facilitate relationships, not necessarily to be that person. So I lovingly say that I have had a lot of men who drop kicked me into success because they saw something in me before I saw it in myself.
Right, which is fantastic. And then you became, in 2015, you became the first female NFL coach. Congratulations, that's amazing. Did you kind of sit there and did you even realize what you accomplished and what you accomplished for women in football? Or was it just how you just kind of went with it?
It was truly surreal, especially before it, like, because I knew for a while before I was there that it was going to happen. But I wouldn't tell anybody because it was like, what if it went away, right? Like it was almost too special to like say out loud because it was like I might jinx myself. And, it couldn't come from anywhere. It's not like there couldn't be any rumors. It couldn't be done the wrong way. So there were only a very, very small group of people who knew. And then once I got there, I went from relative anonymity to an NFL press conference with no media training, no anything. So yet again, I felt like I was kind of like drop kicked to the world, right? Like here you are, all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness.
And go.
Right. And my focus was always like, your job as being the first is to make sure that you're not the last. Other women have opportunities because this set a standard that not only is it possible, but it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I was very cognizant about a lot of things that were interconnected to what we were doing in Arizona, because, at that time, the hard part of being the first is that, it wasn't a conversation of could Jen Welter do this? It was, could a woman do this? Mm-hmm. Right? And there were no other data points than me, right? Yep. So, you're writing a narrative that has implications that are way bigger than just you living your life.
And did you have any adversity, from the Cardinals, from the NFL? Was there any talk behind your back or anything.
Well, if it was behind my back, it stayed there. But in terms of, I wish that every meeting room I've ever walked into was as receptive as the ones that I walked into with the Arizona Cardinals, both in terms of players and coaches. I mean, they were not only, okay with it, they were excited and proud to be a part of history. And those men were so wonderful as players, as fellow coaches, and most importantly, as humans.
You are the founder of the Gridiron Girls. It's a football camp for young girls and boys, right?
Don't turn the boys away. If they're cool enough to want to come play with the girls, we'll take them.
Right.
I'm all for boys that want to be out there with the girls. I'll take them all day. But they need to know that's what it's for.
Right, absolutely. Well, we have a little video actually to kind of tell our audience more about it. So let's roll that.
Every time you step on the football field, you have got to set the tone. Make them respect you. Give me 2 steps. Whoa, Superman. Rah! Make a statement. Doesn't matter about anybody else but your own best self. Let's go. Right now. You tell people what you want to do all day long, but when your game speaks, they'll listen. You will have to take and earn everything that you want. But the best part about it is that there has never been a better time for women and girls in football because you are all the future. This place taught me I could be magic. And when you're magic in one place in your life, that will carry over into everything that you do because you'll be addicted to greatness.
Why is the program so special?
There's so many reasons. I mean, when I first made it to the Cardinals, one of the things that really, warmed my heart was the amount of girls and women who reached out and said, thank you for letting me know I wasn't wrong for loving football. Thank you for showing that it wasn't a deficit of mine. And then I was working on the Keep Playing Like a Girl campaign. And I was editing, authoring part of the literature, putting my doctor hat on. And there was some research that said that half of girls will drop out of sports by the time they finish puberty. And that's the time when girls need confidence the most. And we all know that sports can be an opportunity for girls to develop confidence. And when they asked the girls why, right? Why would they drop out? 7 out of 10 of the girls said that they felt they didn't belong in sports. 7 out of 10 of the girls felt that society didn't support them in sports. And 7 out of 10 said there were not enough visible female role models in sports. And to me, that was a call to action moment. It was if I'm not that person who is in their lives and out on the field and accessible and showing and teaching in a hands-on way for these girls, then the wrong woman was the first female coach in the NFL. Someone else should have done it. Because the way that we truly change the game, not just for one person or in one season, is that we change how the game is portrayed to and the access to the game that girls have. And so I realized when I started looking around that no one was doing that on a national scale, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that there weren't people doing great things for girls, but it might be like the New York Sharks who do a Fins Up camp just in New York. Okay, well, that's great for the girls in New York, but what about the girls across the country? And, you know, girls in Florida, where I'm from, could play varsity flag football, but that was one of only 3 states at that time, right? So where could we tell the story bigger and make it a movement? And so me and a few people who believe in me, like my 2010 defensive coordinator, Anthony Stone, and some of my friends literally said, well, okay, so this needs to happen, and announced that we were going to do a national tour. No sponsors, no backing, literally just my reputation and us being stubborn. And our goal was to do like 12 camps in the first year. I think we ended up doing 19. And, you know, one of those being with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were the first NFL team to do one. And then we picked up Adidas. First, Adidas, you know, helped by giving us the t-shirts. We did their first football camp ever on Adidas campus, and it was a camp for girls, which was so dope. And then everybody at Adidas basically saw the impact on the girls, and they wanted, you know, to be more involved. And then Adidas signed me actually in at Super Bowl in 2018 as the first female to sign with one of those major apparel companies in football, right? And so now you're showing that there could, you know, be a future in access, right? And our philosophy with that, right, which now we've done 35 camps in, you know, a little over 2 years. We probably would have done a whole lot more by now if it wasn't for COVID. It's actually killing me to not be able to do more with the girls right now. You know, one of the things that we've been able to show is that girls do want to try it, right? And that not only do they want to try it, but they can be really good at it. And so many people who didn't know what it would look like or feel like to have these girls in it could see it, right? And we became very intentional with our messaging, with our, you know, with our marketing, and with the fact that this was a place to teach confidence through football and teach these girls that there was no game they could not play and no field that they did not belong in or on. This was no longer a place where they were the exception to the rule for loving football, but they could come out on that field to rule. And though I first was mostly like concerned with making sure it was just all about football and they got as good a football experience as would be co-ed or would be for boys. The thing that we adapted, which, you know, I say I'm coachable. I like it when people know more than me, but a lot of the parents and even people who are watching or friends of mine or businesses are like, we really hope that the girls are getting enough of a dose of you. We hope that they're getting you building into them with the personality and mindset that you have. And I was kind of like,
because you've done it.
right? You know, at first to me it was separate, and it was like, no, it's just really about giving them great football. And what I realized is that that wasn't enough.
But I hope to see you on the sidelines soon. I think we should make a pact. I think there needs to be more women in sports in general. So yeah. And to my audience, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe. We are on YouTube Live now. You can also reach me at Sport Report Deb. Same time next week. Catch you later. Football forever. Much love.